Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I've got the 1/8 scale figure of Rengoku in the DX version by Bellfine. I actually received this figure quite a while ago in one of my previous hauls. But as you can see from the size, I was pretty much too lazy to open it up. Eventually, what needs to be done needs to be done. So Rengoku is here to be opened up today. So without wasting any more time, let's just get started. I got this figure from Ami when it was on sale for 23,000 yen, which is about 150 USD. That's like half the original price, which was around 44k yen. I had to ship this by surface because this is huge, and shipping was about 38 USD. This figure took about 2 months to reach me after I ordered this in May in 2024. The box has no windows on it and kinda resembles a resin statue box. There are photos of the figure on all sides of the box, and I feel that there is some thought put into the design. It's pretty decent. Okay, because this box is really huge, I'll be opening this up over here. Inside this box, instead of getting the typical plastic blister package, I got a white styrofoam box. On the inner side of the box, it is just a plain cardboard box. Besides the giant foam package, this figure also has a set of instructions. Considering the complexity of the effect pieces, I am definitely going to need this. Look, there are so many steps and this is daunting. Anyway, back to unboxing. Like resin statues, the foam box is secured by Velcro straps. After removing them and getting rid of the lid, I first have the first layer of the foam box. It contains some flame effect pieces. Next is the second layer and it contains more flame effect pieces. Lastly is the heaviest layer, where there is the rocky base and Rengoku himself. Now, to take each component out from the foam layers. First up, I have this flame effect piece. All the various parts are protected with plastic sheets, so I don't have to worry about scratches on these transparent flame pieces. Especially this second piece, which looks really huge. It's really big, but looks really fragile as well. Next is the second layer of the foam box. Inside, this is the third flame effect piece, followed by the fourth piece, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh piece, a random rock, followed by the eighth piece, and the last but not least, ninth flame effect piece. Moving on to the third and final layer of the foam box, inside, I have the rocky base which is quite heavy. Below it, there is a felt material to allow ease of moving this figure about when it's assembled. That's pretty thoughtful. Next, I also have Rengoku's sword, as well as the figure of Rengoku himself, looking really badass. And that's all the components I have for this really huge figure. Now, to assemble this scary thing. Oh gosh, I hope it goes smoothly. For assembly, all this looks pretty complicated to put together. But I think the instructions seem clear enough, so hopefully I'll get through this. Firstly, I've got to put some of these effect pieces on the base. Thankfully, they numbered the pieces, so I know which one goes in what sequence. Well, let's get started. First things first, here is a spin of the rocky base. It is very detailed and colored very naturally. On it, there are various holes, pegs, and indentations to slot the effect pieces and Rengoku in. Here is the first effect piece to be inserted according to the instructions. It has a giant peg at the bottom and that slots over here. Once that is in, next I have this rock and it has a hole below it. This plugs into the peg on the first effect piece. The next effect piece is this, and it has one peg at the tip over here. It also has 3 pegs on the other end, over here, here, as well as here. Those 3 pegs slot directly into the base over here. I have put this base on a turntable so it's easier to spin it around and slot the different components in. I didn't really want to scratch my table from sliding this figure around. Also, for this particular piece, since there are 3 pegs, I found it easier to plug them in one by one. Some may require a bit of force, but they go in quite snugly eventually. Here is the third effect piece, and it has 2 pegs at the bottom, over here, as well as here. Those 2 pegs goes into these 2 holes on the base as indicated. Fortunately, this piece seems to go in pretty easily. And once it's in, I can start to see this flame effect coming together, looking really cool. Next up is the 4th effect piece. Over here, there is 1 peg. Towards the end of this flame effect piece, there are also 2 other pegs over here. These 2 pegs slot into the base over here, as well as here. Moving on, this is the 5th effect piece, and there is a peg over here. This slots into one of the other flame effect piece that has already been set on the base. Next up is the 6th and biggest effect piece. At the bottom ends, there are 2 pegs as indicated. The peg on one of the ends slots into another flame effect piece like so. The other end slots into the hole on the base. This effect piece is pretty big, and once it's in, it's quite satisfying. Somewhere along the middle of this effect piece, there is also another peg here. This connects to another effect piece that was already on the base. I seem to have put that piece behind and have to adjust it to the front such that the peg is aligned with the hole. Thankfully, the material is not that rigid and I can nudge it a bit. On this same giant effect piece, there is also a hole. And once again, this joint also connects to another effect piece at the top. Lastly, on this giant effect piece, I also have a little peg here. This connects to another flame effect piece as well. Before I continue with the remaining effect pieces, I have to put Rengoku into this fire cage first. At the bottom of both of his sandals, there are plastic pegs. This slots into the base over here, as well as here. Because the effect pieces are in the way, I kinda have to maneuver Rengoku into the center space without breaking anything. Once he is more or less in, I start by setting one of his sandals into the base roughly. This allows me to slowly push him properly into the base. It requires a bit of force, but he will go in once at the correct position. And with that, Rengoku is set in his fire cage, looking really awesome. Now, back to the 7th flame effect piece. This one has 2 pegs at the bottom, and they slot into the base over here. It goes in quite easily, thankfully. Next, this is the 8th piece, and it has only 1 peg over here. It goes onto this rock, where there is a hole behind. This one slots in pretty easily as well. Finally, the last effect piece, number 9. It also has 1 single peg over here, and it goes onto this rock, where there is also a hole behind. I don't know why this is last, but this piece has to maneuver around the other flame effect piece that has already been installed. It's kinda troublesome. The last item to attach is Rengoku's sword. It is very detailed with the words Aki Mesatsu, Destroyer of Demons, embedded onto it. The sword simply slides into both of Rengoku's hands. However, it's very tight and I felt really scared that either his hands or the sword handle would get scratched. Also, it's a bit troublesome to align both of his hands at the correct position. Anyway, once that's in, assembly is completed. With that, I have the 1/8 scale figure of Rengoku from Demon Slayer, DX version by Bellfine, fully assembled. And this figure looks stunning. It's such a statement piece for Rengoku. Bellfine has really captured Rengoku in these fighting moments so accurately, and I cannot imagine you getting this without these effect pieces, even though they were asking for such a crazy price. Zooming into the figure, starting from the base, it is just wow. I know figure companies should not resort to adding effect pieces just to jack up the figure prices, but this flame effect looks really stunning. The rocky base forms a very solid foundation for the translucent flame effects to grow out from. The way these effects are sculpted really frames the figure very well. Gaps are intentionally crafted to pick at the figure at very flattering angles. Some of these flame effects also creates a vibrantly hot backdrop for Rengoku. The color gradation of the effects are very beautiful and made more interesting with the randomly floating rocks. As for Rengoku himself, he is in a very dynamic pose, framed very well with the flame effects. The way his clothes and cape are sculpted captures this fighting movement very well. Most figure companies can't get Rengoku's face right, but I think Bellfine did a good job. His shouting expression is well sculpted, with the veins on his forehead popping out. At the back, his vibrant orange hair with red tips are also very nicely sculpted. There is not much shading, but it is detailed enough to get away with it. Lastly is Rengoku's outfit. Although his uniform is in black, there is some shading to create some depth. The folds of the fabric are also sculpted, making this little 1/8 scale figure appear very detailed. Together with the gold buttons, belt, and sword sleeve, Rengoku looks very complete and character design accurate. All in all, I really love this figure of Rengoku, even though I already have so many of him. But would I recommend this figure? For the original price, no. But if you can get him at a really good price, I would say this is a highly recommend, especially if you really like Rengoku. It will be ideal if you can get him with the effect parts because it frames this particular pose of him very well. Sure, this will take up quite a bit of space, but it's a statement piece. It deserves its own space. So yeah, a high recommend, especially if you can get him at a really good price. I am so happy that I did. This looks amazing. And that's all for today's video. Even though I did not intend to get this one initially because of Bellfine's ridiculous asking price, I am so glad I managed to because of the lower aftermarket price. If not for the ridiculous price, this is really a statement piece for Rengoku. Anyway, I really enjoyed putting this one together and I hope you did too. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you enjoyed what you saw, do leave a like and subscribe with notifications to stay tuned to more videos. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye bye!